Justin? Oh,
Okay.
on.
Okay. I'll call to order the regular council meeting Monday, June 10th, 2024. Can I get any introduction to late items? Can I get adoption of the agenda? Can I get mover and secretary, please? Councilor Reid and Councilor Dobson. All in favor, sorry. Carry.
The first item is the adoption of the minutes. That the minutes from the regular council meeting held May 27th, 2024 be adopted.
Can I get mover and secretary? Councilor Reid and Councilor Dobson. Any discussion? All in favor? Carry.
And are there any questions from the gallery?
Go ahead.
So Mr. Wentz was not aware, and he represents the Eagles Nest Neighborhood Society, that this item of midnight access was on the agenda today. So he asked me if I would go down and ask 2 questions. He had work priorities this week, so I couldn't be here. Was there any direct discussion with Ms. Owens or with Ms. Daly regarding the midnight access?
Yeah, could you?
So I sent a letter to the ministry, tried to call, and I got this response back. Email.
Okay, so there was no.
There was no conversation.
Yeah, second.
If we add a little bit, Mr. Berglis did speak with Ms. Nolan when we received the letter originally.
Right. A couple of years ago, right?
Okay.
It was hoped by Mr. Wentz that there would be a fulsome discussion with those people instead of just allowing them to hide behind an email, I guess, is how I would phrase it, because I've been there before. Eagles Nest Neighborhood Society is really looking after that property, and they're providing access for a real big group of people in your community. And I feel like a little effort would be appreciated, and also let them know when there's going to be some discussion about it and some decision, because they're sitting there, they didn't know anything about it. Obviously, they're second homeowners, but I think that they should probably like to know about it. My second question is, how is this council and staff going to support that group of citizens? That's it.
Well, we have we have directed staff to talk to the ministry, which they have, and we have gotten letters back from that. We can have a meeting with the Eagles Nest people if they want, and try to get some direction from them, what they would like to see. But the ministry gave us a letter stating that they don't want the doxing, and that there's other things in there too that need to be addressed. So we can have a meeting with you guys if you want. I have no problem with that.
Just to be clear, I'm not on that society because I don't live there. I'm just
Okay.
helping Mr.
No, yeah, we could have a meeting with them if that's what they choose.
So you would need to talk to them, but they're well aware of the letter now.
Yeah.
And that it's on the agenda tonight. And I'll just say that I think that the relationship between this town and Flinroe needs to grow a little bit. And perhaps they have rules, but every one of her points was addressed in a letter to council of this town. And if that not even met her ears, then perhaps it needs to be further discussion. That's all I can.
No, if they wish to have a meeting, like we have no problem meeting with them. And we would like to see them have that property because they do take care of it. And it's, you know, something that it does help out a lot of people going to the beach. So,
Well, and it takes pressure off your
Yeah.
public beach.
yeah,
If those people can go down there and not have to go and take up a spot down at the public beach, you know, then, or not have to launch 3 boats.
I understand that, but
I know all the rules.
yeah, I know, and we have been trying to address that, to try to get a dock out there for them. It's the ministry's one that's saying no. So, but if the Eagles Nest Society want to meet, I'm more than welcome to meet with them.
Always spread that information.
Yeah. Anything further?
No.
Okay.
The next item is a presentation from Genevieve Bormolo, from the senior hydrologist from Atkins Realis.
Hello, can you hear me well? Yes. Okay, is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't use, share screen, okay. I'm used to different platform. So I will share my screen here for the presentation. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think Richard might have shared our report. I don't know if some of you have time or opportunity to read it, but this presentation is just going to summarize pretty quickly. I think I have about 15 slides, kind of the process and the results of our assessment. And I'm available for questions after. So last year, we were approached by the Village of Canal Flats to present a proposal to complete a groundwater at risk of a containing pathogen assessment, a GARP assessment we called. And the context of this was to satisfy the condition number 6 that was in a letter issued by Interior Health. So there was several conditions. This one was one of them. So that was a detail here. So basically what they were asking is to do what we call a GARP assessment, and there's a guidance document that we follow that's well established in BC. So that was the work that we did. So the specific objective was to then complete the hydrogeological assessment to support the determination of whether the Village of Canal Flat wells are GARP. So the acronym stands for groundwater at risk of containing pathogens. That's what I'm going to use that acronym a lot in the presentation. And again, we were following that guidance document, and it's a 2017 document. So the scope of work, we had health and safety and project management task. We did a data review of hydrogeological information, previous reports. There's a big database in BC that has information on existing aquifer and wells. Then we did some site investigation. We did a site reconnaissance. We went on site 4 times to collect samples. We worked with the staff of the village, and we did also a different type of analysis. It's called that MPA stands for microscopic particulate analysis. So it's a different type of sampling that we did as well. So then we collected all the data. We summarized everything in a report that was submitted to the village. So this is just a summary of the approach. So when we do a GARP assessment, it starts with the stage 1, which is a hazard screening and hydrogeological investigation. We look at water quality results, well location, well construction, the type of aquifer and the setting. And then there's a little flow chart here, but yeah, basically you collect information and then you evaluate if you think that your well are GARP. And then you would follow by risk mitigation and then long-term monitoring. This was a table that was in the report. It's a summary of the main results of the study. So this is all the different hazard that we looked at. These are the 4 categories. And then each of these hazard are described. And then for each well, it says if it's present or not present. And then there's a bit of an explanation here. I won't read all of that, but the following slide will just describe kind of the main items or the main hazard that were identified for this assessment. So water quality results. So maybe I'll explain a little bit more what we did. So we did for 6 months weekly sampling. So that was done by the staff of the village. So at all 3 wells, each week they would collect field measurement for turbidity and also collect water sample from all 3 wells that were sent to the lab to test for total coliform and E. coli. So that was done weekly by the staff of the village. And then we went 4 times during that period to take confirmatory sample. And also we collected, we kind of tested for other parameters when we were there. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we did that microscopic particulate analysis. So the results of all this for turbidity, the field measured turbidity was done using a portable meters, and it was consistently below 1 NTU. And turbidity was the highest through July and early August. But the key point here is for supply wells, you want your water to be clear, and 1 NTU is it's the type of unit, but yeah, you want it to be below 1 NTU and to be consistent. So our results show that. In terms of total coliform and E. coli, you want no detection, and all the sample collected by us and by the village had no total coliform and no E. coli. Everything was below detection limit. And then the microscopic particulate. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
Nope.
Okay, and then the MPA results. So that is a type of a sampling that we have a filter, and there's water that's like going through that filter for was about an hour, and then we send that filter to the lab, and then they kind of can see in the filter if there's any indication of surface water indicators, we call it. So if there would be giardia, crypto, pollen, some type of algae, so they kind of collect the filter and analyze it. And then we see if there's surface water indicators, because normally you would expect to have no surface water indicators in groundwater. So the result from both wells, we did that for well 1 and well 2, that are the main wells used for the city or for the village. And then there was no indicator of surface water indicators in those 2 samples. And we did that twice during the study. We did it in at low water and at high water. So we did it in June, which is representative of like freshet, so at high water. And then we did it again in November or October, November at low water. So this is a little bit showing the a map of the village here. In pink, it's the delineation of the aquifer. It's a sand and gravel aquifer. It's quite shallow. It's a very producive aquifer. So the number here, this is all come from a database. It's identified in the province database, the provincial database. So it's considered a high productivity aquifer with moderate demand, but a high vulnerability. So the wells are here. And then the wells are located about 1.6 kilometers north of the Kootenay River, and then 1.2 kilometers south of Columbia Lake. The arrow here shows the approximate direction, the groundwater flow direction. And then what else do I want to say here? Oh, in burgundy here, that's the sanitary gravity main of the village, and the green line here is the pressure main. And I have another slide that I will discuss this a little bit more in detail. So another characteristic of the aquifer here is that the shallow depth to water. This is a plot showing the depth to water in a year. This is so this is the different colors or different years. So in 2023, that's the burgundy color here. So this is just showing these numbers. I don't know if you can see well, but during the freshet at high water, June, July, August, the water is as shallow as 2.6 meters below ground. So that's pretty shallow. And then it goes kind of around 3.6 at lower water. And these actually are data that came from Living Lakes Canada. They have a data logger installed in well number 1. So this is really good data that we were able to access for this study. So this is just to show, maybe explain a little bit kind of what I mean by a shallow aquifer. So these are an example of two wells here. So this well here is a shallow well, is kind of and in an aquifer, sand and gravel, and it's vulnerable because it's shallow and it's connected to the surface easily. Whereas this second well here, there's the same sand and gravel, but then there's a protective clay layer in between, and then there's another aquifer here. So this well extract water at a deeper location, a deeper aquifer that would be better protected. So in the case of the village of Canal Flats, we're kind of more in this scenario with shallow wells, and that's why we say they're highly vulnerable to anything that would happen at the surface, could easily travel and reach the groundwater. So this is a zoom in on the other figure that I had earlier. So this is we call this a capture zone. So again, this is the groundwater flow direction. And then a capture zone, it basically means that anything within this would reach the well. So this is an area that we want to be particularly careful. Like the 100-day here, this is 100-day time of travel. So what it means is something here in the groundwater would take about 100 days to travel to the well, and this is a 200-day time of travel. So in the capture zone for the wells of Canal Flats is the main core of the village. There's also the sanitary pressure and gravity main. These blue dots here are these come from that database that I'm talking about, the provincial database. So these represent wells that have been drilled in the past. So they could be old, they could be not there anymore, but they could still be there, or they could be existing. So this is information that it's kind of important to know, because if some of these wells are still being used, they could be a kind of a preferential pathway to the aquifer if they were not kind of used properly or constructed properly. There also could be possibly old or existing septic fields within. So these would be all kind of threat for or would present a risk for the presence of pathogens in groundwater. So this is just showing the well construction. So this is another thing that we looked at. So all in new wells that are constructed, there's always like a surface seal. But this, all the wells that are before 2005, when the groundwater protection regulation came into, what's the word I'm looking for? Introduced. So now all the new wells have that, but when we're looking at old well, they don't have surface seal. So in the case of well number 2 and well number 3 that were drilled prior to 2005, they don't have that surface seal. In the case, because they are inside the pump house, that's not such an issue, but they wouldn't meet that point of the regulation. There's also the issue of the flood proofing of well number 1. It meet the minimum requirement of 0.3 meters above ground, but considering that the village of Canal Flat, this whole zone is in a flooding zone, we would recommend an extension of that casing to 1 meter above ground level. So that was really quick, but the conclusions of the assessment was like in that big table, there was kind of 7 out of 13 hazards that are present. The main one that pose the risk are shallow intake, so the wells are really shallow. They are in a highly vulnerable aquifer. And the presence of the sanitary network within the capture zone is one of the main hazards. So despite having low turbidity and the absence of total coliform and E. coli during the 6 months of monitoring program, the wells are still considered at risk of containing pathogens. So the recommendation, so when a groundwater source is considered GARP due to one or more hazards, then the water supplier must either remove or mitigate the specific hazards causing the risk to ensure that the water drawn from a GARP source is made potable before consumption. So risk mitigation options include disinfection of the source water. So that's all under the section 5 of the BC Drinking Water Protection Regulation. So that would mean treatment of the water, because right now the water has no form of treatment. Other option could be drilling a new well in a safer location. It could be possible that there's a deeper aquifer. So that's something that could be explored. So it could be a similar location, but a deeper aquifer if it's there. We would need to drill to know that. And then they could be providing an alternate source of water. Other risk mitigation options are altering the well or correcting significant deficiencies in well construction. In the case of those wells, I don't think that would be sufficient. And eliminating the source of contamination is also an option. But in this case too, I mean, the way they are located, the core of the village is there, and I feel there's a lot of hazards just by having the village on top of the capture zone of these wells. So that's a quick summary of the report. I'm sure you might have a lot of questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Stuff was answered in that.
So,
Lots of stuff was answered in that.
okay. So your recommendation is to look for a deeper well?
Not necessarily. These are all, no, I mean, it could be treatment. I mean, treatment is probably the easiest one, but it's a decision. These are all potential options, but
Why would we want to disinfect our water if it's not contaminated?
because it's at risk of being contaminated.
So when the water flows on the aquifer, under the aquifer, a lot of it is filtered out on
Yes.
the way through. How, so just in that little area with the blue outlines is the area that you deem is the biggest, that area there is the biggest risk.
Yes.
And all the wells.
Yeah. So the issue, and I agree. I mean, we didn't measure total coliform, we didn't measure E. coli, and turbidity was fairly low. So yeah, there's no issue, but there's just risk associated with the fact that it's a shallow aquifer. So, 2.3, it's like it's under 10 feet. So say that there's a break, say there's a leak in the sanitary main. Well, that would make it to the aquifer like directly. So that's a source of pathogens. Other example is if there is septic fields. I don't know if there are. I was told that there's possibly a surface water well that people use, like these kind of old, shallow, tree kind of concrete kind of thing. So, or even an existing well, if they're like a direct link with the groundwater, with the aquifer. So if they're used if they're not if there's no cap on it, if there's animals that can fall in it, rodents, there's just a lot of risk with an aquifer that's shallow like that.
Like, how deep is our aquifer again?
Well, the wells are about 13 meters deep.
And that's considered shallow?
Yeah. Like in the guidance document, like 15 meters is the number.
15 or 50?
15, 15. Yeah.
So
So I mean, how it works, like, so this is just kind of, I'm not the so the drinking water officer is at Interior Health, is the person that will, tell you what. Well, they'll use my report. So, you would take this, provide it to Interior Health, and then, they'll come back with some recommendations. Like the recommendation don't come from me, but our assessment is showing that these wells are considered GARP following this guidance document. And then, so from there, you would submit this to Interior Health, and then, they'll go from there. And so the drinking water officer is the person who will, at the end of the day, kind of make the final call if he's considering these well as GARP or not. But
So one of the other recommendations that could come into play is that all those wells that are not capped would have to be capped, right?
Ideally, yes. And it's more than just the cap. There's also like the area around. So if when you have a casing that goes in the ground, along the casing, that's also a preferential pathway. So the recommendation, and I think I had it in my image, I can so see here, and I often see this is not the case. The ground should be sloped away from the wellhead, so there's no water that can infiltrate, or like there's no water pooling around this that can infiltrate. So, if there's a lot of wells within, and I think I saw one when I was there. I think there's like the old golf course there. I think there's also some animals there. I think there's an old well. I saw something that looked to me like a pump house. So there's just a lot of things to and this assessment didn't kind of include like a detailed inventory of within the capture zone, but all these things would need to looked at. But I think regardless of that, I think when the drinking water officer kind of read through that, just because of the shallow aquifer, like I think they would recommend to at least have at least one level of treatment. And the recommendation would probably be to be 2, because I mean, most systems have at least chlorination, and then sometimes
Yeah, we're a lot of people that are against the chlorinization of it, especially if it's clean drinking water already.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that.
The
Yeah.
risk, but I know that the people are not looking for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
drilling a deeper well helps.
So basically, we're 6 feet from
safe drinking water.
Yeah.
Is what the assessment's saying.
Oh,
Frozen.
oh, she froze. Okay. That was my question.
Yeah.
Drilling a deeper well, help us, because I'd rather not, have chlorine in the water.
So I missed the comment from the previous comment, but a deeper well, though, yes, it is an option, but it's not guaranteed that there's an aquifer deeper. So that would still be kind of an exploration program. You would drill and I mean, we could first look at all these blue dots that I was showing on the map. These, not all of them, but a lot of them has a record, so a borehole log associated with these. So that's something that we can look at. So that's already giving us an idea. But I'm pretty sure that when normally for a resident, like for a private owner, you get a driller, they drill, as soon as they have enough water, they'll stop. So I would be really surprised that we'd have like a wells that went deeper to see if there's a deeper aquifer. But without drilling, we don't know that. But the first step would be to look at the data and then find out if there's indication of a deeper aquifer. And then it's like finding a good location and then drilling deeper. But there's no guarantee that there is a deeper aquifer. And a deeper aquifer could have also different water quality, like different minerals. Sometimes deeper aquifer can have iron or manganese or sulfur. So yeah, there's no guarantee. That's what I'm trying to say here. But if the treatment is not something that's well accepted in the village, then it is probably the best option.
Have you ever seen a drinking water officer not take your recommendation?
Well, I'm not always kind of involved in that, like where it goes after I'm hired, so I don't know. But in that case, I would be pretty surprised that they wouldn't want to see at least. I'm pretty sure they'll ask for treatment for sure, unless we go with another source. Yeah.
Have you, sorry,
Go ahead.
Have you ever seen a community come out of this free of like move from this type of recommendation to drill a deeper well or do a whole bunch of work to mitigate risk and consequence and come out and still not chlorinate? Or
to be honest, most people just put treatment after so I'm just thinking of all the recent one I did, because usually when the IH Interior Health, if they're asking for a GARP, they think that it is GARP, because if it's already like a deep, they know, right? So in one case, they were pretty sure that they need treatment. They already had chlorination. So the question then was more like the second type of treatment, because you can do filtration or UV. Filtration is more expensive and more involved. So often it's to try to demonstrate if you need filtration. If you can get by just doing UV and chlorination instead of filtration. So that's one case. Another case recently that I did, in that case, it was just the well construction. Those wells were just, there was water around the wells all the time. So, and that was the source. So as soon as we kind of did the surface seal and kind of modified the wellhead, and then we did a second kind of a monitoring program, like another 6 months, and that solved the issue in that case. But again, that system had chlorination. So the question was if they needed a second system or not, but they already had chlorination. There's not a lot of system with no chlorination at all, I have to say. So I think that might be difficult for the village to remain like that.
Well, my question is, why would we have to do that if our drinking water is safe and well, it's good?
It's because it's a risk. It's a risk. Do you remember? I don't know. When I started my practicing hydrogeology, that's more than 20 years ago now. But 2001, Walkerton. I don't know if you remember that it was in Ontario, and it was wells that were close to some farms, and there was a big, there was a heavy rain, and I think there was some animals come back, and totally the wells had E. coli and total coliform, but it just happened, and it wasn't caught like early enough, and people were really sick, and there was even one death. So it's after this event that all these guidance document and regulation was put in place to just protect the so I mean I agree, your water is totally fine right now as it is, for sure, but there's no level of safety. If something happened, if like somebody has a well decide to like dump something in this well, or there's just not a bit, or if there's a big leak in the safety in the sanitary pressure main, that would make it directly to the groundwater. So I think the drinking water officer, just in their role of like ensuring safety of drinking water, I think that's why they would ask you probably to put a treatment system.
And then when they ask for a treatment system, who's responsible for that?
You mean to pay for it, or?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh,
Thank you, Genevieve.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the Community Futures Connect invitation. That the invitation to council from Community Futures seeks to be to the Community Futures Connect event being held June 20th at the Village Social be received for information.
Can I get a mover and seconder? Councilor Reid, Councilor Pavda. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Carried.
Letter from Canfor, that the referral letter dated June 3rd, 2024 from Canfor regarding proposed forest development activities be received for information.
Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Pavda, Councilor Noble. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Carried.
Lake Windermere ambassadors and basic species watercraft inspection stations, that the letter from Lake Windermere ambassadors to Prime Minister Trudeau and ministers regarding the closure of aquatic invasive species watercraft inspection stations in BC be received for information.
Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Noble, Councilor Reid. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, did you?
So they're getting rid of all of these in our area?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah,
And so this letter is to say no.
yeah, we still want it.
Just wanted to-
Yeah, go ahead.
If council wishes staff to prepare a letter of support, council can do so.
Okay. I think we should do that. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councilor Pavza, Councilor Noble. Or a letter of support to have the stations remain. Okay. All in favor? Carried.
The next item is the UBCM conference meetings, that council directs staff to book the following meetings with provincial ministries at the 2024 UBCM conference.
Can I get well, first we should know what ministers we're gonna go down. So, what recommendations do you guys? Yeah, I guess we couldn't do it, can we?
You can just either way.
Okay. So we'll I did have a discussion with Richard earlier. I picked 3 ministers I'd like to see, but if you guys have any other recommendations, that'd be great. Richard, do you have the ministers?
Through the mayor, municipal affairs with regards to water and sewer. Minister of Transportation with regards to speed limits on 93-95. And the Ministry of Environment with regards to the subdivision of site plans, and the big property.
So the Ministry of Transportation for, what was your reason?
The speed limit, that's all that.
We've already had meetings on that. That speed limit's not gonna go down.
Oh, we could try.
I just think if there's another thing we could do, I think that we should. We've already been in talks with transportation. We can continue to talk with them. They've asked us, to do that grant, which we've been using for other things that we could also be using for that. So I just think that if there is something else, we can put it above that transportation because we're already working with them.
Okay.
Just my thoughts.
What are other options? Like, to
Anyone at the Ministry.
And yeah, I think Minister said, one of the ones I was thinking about was Ministry of Housing. Talking to them.
We had what, seven?
We had 7 last year.
Seven and 2 staff meetings last year, so it's not limited to 2 or 3, it's like whatever. So I think with phase 3 of the dike, I think the dike talk is still relevant. Our infrastructure deficits for the Ministry of Municipalities, for sure. Water protection and
Ministry of Environment.
whatever our results are coming down the road between now and UBCM, we're gonna need, if we're having to do any treatment of our water, we're going to need to cover those costs. Any improvements, we need to figure out how we're gonna cover those costs. So we're gonna, that's probably relevant at that time.
So is that in the Ministry of Environment that you would be speaking?
Yeah, one would be the Ministry of Environment. This municipal affairs and housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Housing for which topic?
Well, basically, we're looking for some help with the development.
Okay, so
Dane Housing, yes.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if there's any other recommendations that come get stairs. You get them.
we can go forward with these 3.
Yeah.
So how many meetings can you have, like, you get to have, sorry?
Most
When
people
you-
only get 3.
Oh, only get 3?
Yeah.
Actually, you can get, I've seen 5, 6.
Well, they had some.
Yeah,
That,
so-
I was told that's untrue.
Oh, really?
As I was, Kimberly knows guys usually don't get.
There
much
were
time
a
as
lot
these
of
guys got. And also I will be attending a few meetings with the RDK.
Okay, so we're gonna, for this, we're gonna agree on the affairs transportation environment for now, and then add.
And if you guys have any more,
Can you do that?
go ahead.
Just to go back to the MOTI, and just clarify that in the past, there have been instances where councils have wanted things done and have met numerous times, year after year after year, until they got what they needed. So it's not unadvisable to meet with MOTI, just to say, hey, we're still trying to reduce the speed.
Okay,
It doesn't hurt.
Thanks.
Let me just say that, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna be there anyways.
And if I may, I had like conversations with the RDEK and then on our behalf. And sometimes the staff is different. The very next day, the minister was there. The entire conversation was a lot more different, and he was willing to make some changes right away with the information that we had about the fires and drainage and things like that. So it just depends on who's listening that day.
Okay. Can I get a mover in a second? Councilor Reed, Councilor Gobson. Any more discussion?
But council like me to reread this?
Sure, please.
Very loosely. The council directs staff to book the following meetings with provincial ministries at the 2024 UBCM conference. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs for Water and Sewer, MOTI for speed limit reduction, Ministry of Environment for dike lands subdivision, and Housing, Ministry of Housing regarding the attainable housing, assistance with the attainable housing.
All in favor? Carried.
Letter from Legislative Reform Initiative, that the letter from Vanessa Craig, Chair of the Regional District of Nanaimo, regarding an update of the Legislative Reform Initiative be received for information, and that council directs staff to prepare a letter of support regarding the initiative.
I get a mover and a seconder. Councilor Reed, Councilor Thompson, discussion. All in favor? Carried.
There's an email from the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, disallowance of a dock at Midden Road, that the email from Lauren Nolan, Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship regarding the disallowance of a dock located at Midden Road be received for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with an option outlined below.
Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Thompson, Councilor Reed. And discussion. Go ahead.
I move to defer
Bird.
until we have an opportunity to meet with the
Legal steps.
Eagles Nest. At this time, it would be unfair for us to make any decision without having that fulsome conversations.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Oh, good. Okay, Councilor Thompson seconds it. All in favor? Carried.
The report from the groundwater at risk pathogens, that council received at Atkins Realis Canada a final groundwater at risk of pathogen start report for information.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councilor Reed. Any discussion?
We all had a pretty good discussion.
Okay, all in favor? Carried.
Terms of reference for Water Protection and Conservation Advisory Committee, the council approved the terms of reference for the Water Protection and Conservation Advisory Committee, and then council directs staff to seek resumes for the positions required with the goal of recommending members by July 8th, 2024.
Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Reed, Councilor Noble. Any discussion on this? I do want to move that the term of reference includes the following clause, and the committee members shall draft a inaugural framework for the Canal Flats Community Trust at the end of this term.
You're adding that in?
Yeah. I would like that. Gotta get a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councilor Reed, Councilor Thompson.
So we're, this wants to be done by July 8th. You want to?
Yeah, we'd like to try to have the committee in place by July 8th. Go ahead.
So the idea would be to, over the net between now and July 8th, would gather resumes and then have council review them at the following council. Make a decision on the makeup of the committee. We'd basically spend the next.
All in favor?
So,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
so, first, council would have to approve the amendment, and then if they approve the amendment, then
Okay.
we'll approve the motion as amended.
Okay. Can I get a mover and seconder on the amendment? And
Adoption. Or comment.
all in favor?
Sorry.
Carried.
Now the main motion.
And we already got a mover and seconder.
Yes.
All in favor for the making motion? Carried.
And an adjournment.
Okay, we're adjourned. By voter second. Yes, which is normal. All in favor? Gary?